We're going to start with video messages from Margaret Vestager, who's the Executive Vice President, Biotech and Biomanufacturing of European Commission from Denmark. And this is a video message. And right after that video message, there'll be another one followed by Michael Kellner, Deputy Minister, German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action from Germany. So there'll be two videos back to back.
Dear all, it is a pleasure to be with you today, just by video and quite far from the beautiful city of Nairobi. I hope you had a good start to this summit. Allow me to do a special greeting to our bioeconomy youth ambassadors that are with you today for their first bioeconomy summit in Africa. All of us in this room and online have one thing in common. No matter where we are on this planet, we face similar challenges. Global warming is a disrupting natural cycle around us, with the summer 2024 being the hottest on record globally. Natural disasters, from floods in Poland to wildfires in the Amazon, continue to spread across our continents. Biodiversity keeps shrinking under the pressure of human activity. But all of us in this room and online, we also share a common belief. To many of these challenges that affect our nature, nature also brings solutions. What we are witnessing today is no less than a revolution in the making. The sustainable use of biological resources will enable us to reduce our dependence on fossil materials, address climate change, regenerate nature, and valorize our waste. Powered by new digital models and artificial intelligence, researchers from all over the world are developing new cell and gene therapies. Someday, these could cure severe diseases like Parkinson's. Other researchers are working on new food proteins that could combat hunger and feed our planet. If done right, biotech as part of the broader bioeconomy sector, holds the power to change the course of events. No less than that. So I come to you today with a simple message. We must do all we can to accelerate the development of bioeconomy. In Europe, we started this process in 2012, when we adopted our first EU bioeconomy strategy. We will soon update this strategy to take into account the current societal, demographic, and environmental challenges. We will reinforce its industrial dimension and its link to biotechnology and biomanufacturing. In March this year, we proposed actions to boost biotechnology and biomanufacturing in Europe. We included provisions such as harmonizing patents across Europe, protecting intellectual property, and improving biotech businesses' access to venture capital. All of this will feed into a new EU Biotech Act to be proposed next year. The idea is to tackle all things that unlock biotech's growth potential. I mean upskilling and reskilling people to have a real biotech workforce. I mean streamlining procedures to facilitate the road from labs to markets. I mean expanding access to finance for many businesses that still today struggle to find the money to scale their innovations. I mean ensuring that scientists can tap into the power of supercomputers to speed up their research and blaze new scientific trails. When looking at the broader bioeconomy sector, the potential is outstanding. In Europe, bioeconomy employs more than 17 million people and generates an added value of more than 700 billion euros. At world scale, this value that bioeconomy brings to the global economy could be 7 times bigger by 2050. Europe is collaborating with many partners around the world on bioeconomy. We have ongoing collaborations on new agriculture and food solutions in Africa. We have innovation partnerships called Desira, where we collaborate with 80 projects in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, supported by 400 million euros in funding. At policy level, the G20 will soon adopt an initiative on bioeconomy that will help to put biotech and biomanufacturing on the global policy agenda for the years to come. So my message is clear. We can't stop it here. The challenges that I mentioned at the beginning of this video are way too big for any of us to solve alone. But today, for the first time in history, we have something called bioeconomy that could provide real solutions. So let's use any occasion that we find, starting with this summit, to join our forces in a common call. All of us, professors, scientists, venture funds, industry, policymakers, can do something about it. It's a collective adventure, an adventure on which it is definitively worth embarking. Thank you. I wish you a wonderful, useful continuation of your summit.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be able to address a few words to you. The bioeconomy is an important topic for the future, which is why Germany was keen to organize the past summits. I very much welcome the fact that Kenya has now assumed the role of host and is taking over the baton for the global bioeconomy. The industrial bioeconomy has the potential to become a major global force in driving the green transition. It is playing an increasingly important role in enhancing the competitiveness of industry and at the same time achieving ambitious climate and sustainability targets by 2030. Bioeconomy, products and processes are already making an important contribution to climate action. They help to end the fossil age and make the economy sustainable and climate neutral. The aim is to further develop the potential of new bio-based processes for industry and bring sustainable products into widespread use. To achieve this, the right framework conditions have to be created. Let me name a few. Short and efficient approval procedures in order to quickly establish the products on the market. More private and public funding to support the long development cycles that are typically associated with the bioeconomy. And, very importantly, the availability of raw materials which are not unlimited in supply. Another crucial factor to consider is public acceptance, at least in Germany and Europe. In addition, any conflicts of interest must also be dealt with, such as nature and environmental protection versus industrial resource utilization and value creation. This topic is high on the European and international political agenda. In a communication by the European Commission from March 2024, biotechnology and bioproduction are described as one of the most promising fields of technology of this century. An EU Biotech Act is also planned for 2025. Brazil has launched the G20 Bioeconomy Initiative, which aims to place the bioeconomy at the center of the global financial and economic landscape. Recognizing the remarkable potential of the bioeconomy to help build a sustainable future and promote an economic growth for all, the G20 finalized 10 voluntary, non-binding, high-level principles on the bioeconomy in September 2024. The final adoption is to take place at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro in November 2024. This is the first time that the bioeconomy has been the subject of such a high-level multilateral document. In addition, the World Economic Forum has addressed the question of how the challenges can be overcome in order to accelerate the transition to a commercial bioeconomy and published a comprehensive report on this in June 2024. I think we all are aware that developing a common understanding and engaging in international cooperation are essential for a successful transition to the bioeconomy. Cross-border cooperation is vital to ensure that global approaches to the bioeconomy are linked in the best possible way and that added value is created for all those involved. The Global Bioeconomy Summit is the best forum for this. I therefore wish you a good and inspiring discussions and much success for the coming days at the Global Bioeconomy Summit. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now allow me to invite Dr. Eliane Ubalijoro, the CEO, Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry, based here in Nairobi, Kenya, for her opening address.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you at the Global Bioeconomy Summit. It's also a distinct pleasure for the first time this summit is hosted outside of Europe in my home continent of Africa. So welcome, Karibuni. This diverse gathering represents the interdisciplinary features of the bioeconomy. The bioeconomy plays an important role in supporting food systems, sustainable development, and climate resilience in Africa. And at C4ICRAF, we think the bioeconomy as the production, use, and conservation of biological resources. This includes associated ecosystem services, provisioning, regulating, supporting, and cultural that undergird sustainable and equitable development. The growing interest in the bioeconomy as a development approach emerges from the urgent need to achieve sustainable and equitable development without breaching planetary boundaries. Hence, the bioeconomy is critical to driving the transition towards a more sustainable future. It does this by addressing significant global challenges: food security, biodiversity loss, climate change, resource scarcity, and the need for equitable employment and income. And in Africa and elsewhere, we see sustainable agroforestry and a forest-based bioeconomy offering solutions for transitioning toward a sustainable economy where these interconnected challenges are addressed simultaneously. As we are in a time of polycrisis, this is a poly opportunity for us to work together. And while we're here right now, we know that the first of the three Rio conventions is happening this year in Cali. I think we're at a really exciting time. And to really mention what my previous speaker was talking about as the importance of Brazil and the event happening in Brazil in November. We're leading to 2025 Climate COP in Belém, where the bioeconomy through social cultural biodiversity, how it's termed in Brazil, is really critical to how we're going to look at our way forward. Developing sustainable and inclusive value chains for forestry and forest products is critical. I've had the opportunity to meet with farmers working in these spaces in Indonesia, in Rwanda, and Kenya, in Brazil, and it's really amazing the work that they're doing. And how the work we're supporting in the summit we're having here is really critical to really scaling the type of wonderful work I'm already seeing with the partners on the ground we at C4ICRAF are working with. We can do this through effective mechanisms for sharing information, benefits, and risk among smallholder farmers, cooperatives, and their business partners, and by leveraging responsible finance. I was recently at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference where we talked about the really critical importance of unlocking private sector finance to complement the finance governments around the world are already putting in place. And the work we're doing in this space is really critical. And just a few weeks ago, while I was in Australia at the Nature Positive Summit, C4ICRAF, working with Microsoft, put out a white paper to help unlock more investment from private sector. And in it, we talk about really critical lessons that we've learned, Microsoft from the private sector perspective, C4ICRAF from our research and development perspective, on how do we collectively work together, research and development, research organizations like ours, C4ICRAF, but many private sector partners around the world. So as we look at how we collectively work to address the poly opportunity, these are really critical steps that we need to take to ensure that sound environmental and social performance of value chains and equitable benefit sharing really brings in the intelligence that we all have together. And when we invest in infrastructure for producing, processing, storing, and marketing tree-based products like fruits, nuts, raisins, essential oils, fibers, natural medicines, and biochar along the timber and wood products, we can empower smallholders and their business organizations to engage successfully in high-value markets. And with these high-value markets, we contribute not only to growing the economy, but also in sequestering carbon and also creating pathways for bending the curve on biodiversity loss. And agroforestry systems play a key role. They promote natural nutrient cycling, fixed nitrogen, and reduce reliance on synthetic inputs. This lowers production costs for smallholder farmers and enhances their ability to produce food sustainably. And this is where the opportunity, where we can look at climate, biodiversity, land, and how we collectively work together, ensuring that carbon sequestration happens with the highest level of community and biodiversity benefits can happen in ways that we engage not only all of us in the bioeconomy, but all stakeholders that are looking at their own carbon footprint, that are looking at their pathways to net zero, and how can they be partners as we move on this trajectory. Plus, the perennial nature of trees and agroforestry systems also helps stabilize ecosystems and agricultural landscapes. This reduces vulnerability to extreme climate events, such as droughts and floods. And some of you were here when the African Partnership and Adaptation was happening here in Nairobi. And what we know is as we look at gray infrastructure and turning into green infrastructure, we can really look at the bioeconomy that greens our infrastructure collectively and ensures that investments that we make now do not get lost because of severe climate events. And I may be biased, but it's fair to say that trees are nature's powerhouses. They increase water filtration, they reduce soil erosion, and they regulate microclimates, which creates more resilient farming systems. By integrating indigenous tree species into agroforestry systems and by sustainably managing natural forests to support conservation and biodiversity, we help prevent biodiversity loss caused by deforestation or intensive agriculture. This is significant. It means that agroforestry and forests can play a key role in carbon markets, payments for ecosystem services such as biodiversity and water productivity, from reforestation, agroforestry, and land restoration investments. Again, more opportunities to unlock investments that helps us, that contributes to the global commons. And it means they can provide new and diversified revenue streams, including for smallholder farmers, if schemes and mechanisms are carefully designed. In Africa, a robust agroforestry and forest-based bioeconomy offers a unique lever for the continent. It can help redirect global finance flows and focused impact investments. And it can harness debt for climate and nature swaps in support of biodiversity conservation, food systems transformation, and the development of sustainable livelihoods and viable businesses. There is so much potential here, and so much opportunity to build transformative change. It's exciting, and it's urgent work. At C4IFCRAF, we offer innovations in bioenergy biochar systems. We focus on addressing inefficiencies across supply and use chains, applying circular bioeconomy principles to minimize resource waste, pollution, and emissions. We do this through sustainable biomass production, efficient processing, effective marketing, and efficient utilization of technologies. And we are also applying circular bioeconomy perspectives in the minimizing resources in reduction of waste, pollution, and emissions, all while enhancing resource recoveries in ways that meet human basic needs. And this is really critical. In support of a green and just transition of the energy sectors in countries highly dependent on coal and other fossil fuels. It is also really critical, particularly in Africa, as we know that 50% of our population, we will have the largest populations by 2035 in the workforce. So how we create green jobs to build that bioeconomy is critical to our young people having hope, having impact, and really feeling that they matter and their work matters and how they can contribute matters. Finally, our sustainability assessments ensure robust monitoring and evaluation of bioeconomy systems and joint learning among diverse stakeholder groups based on it. In short, we are heavily involved in research and action on the bioeconomy. And so we are very much looking forward to this summit and the fruitful exchanges and partnerships that have started emerging since yesterday. Together, we have the power to reshape our economies, conserve biodiversity, and create a sustainable future for Africa and beyond. Thank you, and I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eliane Ubalijoro. I appreciate you. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are moving this forward very, very quickly. So we're going to have a first plenary session, and this is going to be led by the following two chairs, Professor Lucia Peter Luga and Ben Dunham, both of the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy. Do we have those session chairs? Oh yes, there you are. Please give them a round of applause as they go up. So the session they're going to lead us in is Bioeconomy, a Pathway for Strengthening Agri-Food Systems Resilience and Climate Action in Africa and the Global South. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours, and I'll just urge you to keep your eye on that clock because time moves pretty fast when you're up there. Thank you.
Good morning, all. It's the second day of the summit. I'm already feeling some information overload, but it has been an absolutely fantastic occasion already. I hope everyone is developing those relationships because we are going to be together, not just today, but for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. This is the start of the revolution that was mentioned earlier, and we are at the forefront, so get to know the people that you're working with. So we have a fascinating session, and I don't want to take time away from it. We're exploring the challenges and opportunities associated with the development of the bioeconomy and its contribution to socio-economic transformation. This, because we're in Africa, the specific focus is on Africa, but we want to make sure that this is not just relevant to Africa, it's also relevant to the Global South, to Asia, and to Latin America. So this session will explore how bioeconomy contributes to sustainable development and inclusive development. We're going to explore key themes, strengthening capacity to achieve inclusive and sustainable development, as said, innovation for green growth and enhanced food security, visions and strategies for developing the bioeconomy, and entrepreneurship and innovation through bioeconomy ventures. So that's the broad theme for today. We have a panel session focusing then specifically on Africa. We have some entrepreneurs who are going to be giving us their slightly long elevator pitch talks. And then we're having a session on the Global South, Latin America, Asia, and Africa. And then we will wrap up in time for tea at 11 o'clock. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague who will get the first session started. Lucia, over to you.
Good morning. Well, I'm delighted to moderate the next two keynotes about Africa and Latin America. Both speakers will raise the issue on bioeconomy for agri-food systems transformation. This, as I will explain, need new types of development policies. So I will ask Dr. Geta Tades if he can come here. Dr. Geta? Oh yes, here you are. Well, Dr. Geta Tades, he's the Director of Department of Operational Analysis of Academia 2063. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good morning. I'm Geta Tades. I work for Academia 2063 from the headquarters at Kigali, Rwanda. So I'm not wasting time for explaining what Academia 2063 is. I think most of you know about 2063 at least, which stands for the agenda, for African agenda. So today I will be talking about making bioeconomy as a policy agenda in Africa, how we can really make it a policy agenda, because Africa has plenty of policy issues related to development, climate change, food security, nutrition, and all poverty reduction, inclusive growth, and job creations, and all these things. So bioeconomy is also the other agenda. Then we are trying our best to integrate this bioeconomy issue into our development agendas. So I will explain how the policy challenges we have and how best we integrate this bioeconomy into the continental agenda. So my presentation will be bioeconomy, making it a policy agenda in Africa. Can you, next? Yes, I think this one is better. So I think that the role of bioeconomy is very widely known among researchers and scholars, and it's very clear. The science of this is very clear, how it can help us for our climate issues, food system transformation issues, for resilience and all these things. But the challenge we have in Africa is from the policy sides. The first challenge we have is convincing the policymakers to embrace bioeconomy as a concept and also as a policy agenda. This is the greatest challenge we have, and that we researchers and scientists have to work hard to convince them. This is not something new, but something an addition for the existing development agendas. That's one. The other one is once we convince them and how to mainstream it, how to mainstream bioeconomy agendas to our evolving agendas. I mean, we have a lot of agendas, as I said before. So these are the two most important policy challenges that we have in Africa with regards to policy for bioeconomy. Next, please. Yes, in Academia 2063, with its partner organization, we have been contributing to the discussion for bioeconomy, and we are just promoting how to really bring this bioeconomy agenda into the discussions at continental levels. And in 2022, we did some reviews, and the MAMO report has been published. But more recently, this month, we launched the ATOD, which is the African Agriculture Trade Outlook and Report, and which is the official M&E report for the African Comprehensive Agriculture Development Programs, CADAP. So in this report, this year we focused on climate change and bioeconomic agendas for Africa. So we cover a lot of topics that can bring evidence and that can also show how really best we integrate bioeconomy agendas to the continental agendas, policy agendas. So next, please. So one of the issues, some of the highlights that we included in this report is that the first thing we look at the importance of bioeconomy for climate resilience. I mean, we covered issues on sustainable agriculture, the role played for renewable energy and the carbon sequestrations, and also bioproducts and all these things. And we lack some evidence, but I think we tried our best to convince them and also drop some evidence showing that's how important is bioeconomy for resilience. More strong evidence that we got from our analysis is that its importance for nutrition, for combating malnutrition. You can see the other side. I don't know, you see these graphs that the insect-based food versus the conventional plant and animal health source food. So we compare about the protein content and also the iron contents. It's very significant that the insect-based foods are very, very much higher than the traditional sources. So this can help us to convince policymakers how really can also help to improve malnutrition in Africa, which is a very serious problem that policymakers are now promoting to. Next, please. And then I think the other issue that we addressed in the report was the importance of bioeconomy for business. I mean, as you know, that the priority agenda for Africa is agri-food system transformation. I mean, every policymakers talk about transformation and all these things. So then bioeconomy can also contribute for this transformation agenda through industrialization and entrepreneurship, specifically for youth. This is particularly important for Africa because Africa has a lot of potentials in terms of arable lands and also in terms of growth, economic growth. I think you can remember that, I mean, until recent, before the COVID-19, and most of the African countries have been growing very fast. So that implies that, I mean, this bioeconomy can also be benefited from emerging and high economic growth, and also the rich biodiversity, which has been talked several times. And also we have a little bit of growing biotechnology capacities in different countries. So with these backgrounds, and we are trying to convince the policymaker that, I mean, bioeconomy is a key for industrialization and also job creation and entrepreneurship for Africa, specifically for the young youth. I mean, as you know, that the majority of the African population is I think, more than 60% is the young populations. For this young population, I think bioeconomy can play a really significant role. That's the report has highlighted, and we presented for the policymakers. Next, please. But the challenge, we have also a few challenges, I mean, in terms of advancing this bioeconomy agenda. The first one is we don't have a really comprehensive evidence. We do have some fragmented evidence here and there, how bioeconomy can contribute for economic growth and inclusive growth and employment, green growth, and all those things. But we don't have really a comprehensive evidence to convince our policymakers and decision makers. And the other, even some of them even question about the feasibility and scalability of this bioeconomy activities in some areas. And we have a good experience here and there. I think yesterday in the evening, you have seen the launch of the State of Bioeconomy in East Africa. In that report, you see a lot of best practices here and there in different parts of the content, some specific examples. And those are good examples, but I mean, some may raise issue of scalabilities and scaling out and scaling up these activities. But for those things, we need really strong evidence and strong analytics that we expect from science and researchers. And the other one is the issue of consumers' acceptance of insect-based foods, for example. These are just an examples. And also the effectiveness of bioeconomy for business is largely depends on the size of the markets. You know that, I mean, the African markets, I mean, with the introduction of this African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and we are expecting to have a very large and huge market within Africa, not only from the global community, but within Africa. So I think we consider this as a good opportunity for African countries to expand. And many African countries, they have already ratified this Continental Free Trade Agreement, and it will be really a good opportunity for expanding markets and creating more opportunities for bioeconomy products and bioproducts and also other products. So this is a good opportunity for Africa to exploit. That's how we do it, given this. Next, please. And also, I think the other issues that we try to look at is it bioeconomy new topic for Africa? Is it new? And we try to look at the different policies that we have at continental levels and see how really bioeconomy agenda was incorporated. The first one is Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063 has 3 aspirations. The first one is peace, and the second one is prosperity, and the third one is integrations. We call it PPI. But if you look at the second aspiration, which is prosperity for Africans, in many of its goals, it has several goals. In all of those goals, I mean, bioeconomy is indirectly mentioned. For example, if you take the second goal, it talks about promoting science, technology, and innovation. In this mentioning, I think you see clearly that sustainable development, the promotion of bioeconomies and all those things is already there implicitly. And also there is another goal within the Agenda 2063. It tells about environmental sustainability, climate resilient economies and communities, which is directly connected with bioeconomies. And also, if you look at the energy sector, I think it's very clear political commitment for countries and both at continental and country levels for Africa to have a bioenergy policies and framework and guidelines that's already developed at continental level. So this shows that bioeconomy is already there, but what we need is to make it more focused and more mainstream in different aspects of it. But unfortunately, from the CAADP Malabo Declaration, and it's a bit silent on bioeconomic agendas. So I think we reviewed them and how bioeconomy was considered in that agenda, and it was not really that much strong enough. So in a nutshell, it showed that bioeconomy it has been there, but I think we need to do a lot of work to bring into the attention and to the forefront of the discussions in the continental agendas. Next, please. And in the post-Malabo agenda, I think, the CAADP has been established in 2003 and at Maputo. And then after 10 years, it has been planned in Malabo in 2014. And now that 10 years is ending. And next year, we are going to have a new CAADP. That will be the Kampala Declarations. So we are trying to see how really bioeconomy is integrated into the upcoming CAADP strategies. The CAADP, the post-Malabo or the CAADP strategy has several strategic objectives. Three of the main ones are expanding the scope of resilience. In the previous strategy, it was focused mainly on climate, but as we know, resilience shocks are everywhere. We have a health shock, we have the political shock, and all those things. So they want to expand it a little bit beyond that. And also they want to mainstream nutrition. Nutrition has become a very sensitive and a very strong agenda in the post-Malabo. And also agro-industrialization. So if you look at all these things, bioeconomy is key for nutrition as well as for resilience and also building industrialization. But we need a very concerted efforts and also from civil societies and science communities and all those things to make bioeconomy is integral part of the CAADP process. Next, please. Yes, this is the last slide I have. So these are the recommendations that we have, how best we can integrate bioeconomy into the continental agendas. And the first thing is we need data and analytics. I think we have to work hard, and we are standing between science and the policy. So if you want to convince policymakers, they need numbers. They are asking us how much contribution for jobs, because that's the headaches for them. So we have to have really a very quantified numbers and data to convince that really bioeconomy is an agenda for Africa as well. And the second one is we have to also learn from country experience. We have some good experience. I think from the East African community experience, we have a strategy here. And from some countries in South Africa and in Namibia, we have a strategy for bioeconomies. Based on those experience, I think we can convince the continental policymakers to have a continental bioeconomic strategies. That's one. The other thing is we have to align also it with the emerging and burning issues that are already adopted by the continental policymakers, like the issue of climate change. We do have at least two strategies at continental level, the African Climate Change and Resilience Development Strategy and the Green Recovery and Action Plan Strategy that have been adopted by the head of states at continental level. So we have to integrate bioeconomy to those strategies. The food system transformation is just at the high agenda in the continent, so we have to work hard to integrate bioeconomy into that, not at strategic levels, but also at operational levels, at country levels. And also we have to revisit the incentives, trade policies, standards for bioeconomy products, because these products require special rules and special provisions for trades to happen between countries and within cross-border regions and all these things. So those are areas where we have to work hard and work for expanding the trade between countries on bioeconomic products. And also we have to leverage existing funding. I mean, funding is an issue for expanding bioeconomic agendas. So probably climate funds are there. We may leverage all these climate funds, biodiversity funds, and also industrial development funds for I mean, expanding the bioeconomic agenda. And finally, I mean, we have to encourage public-private partnership. I mean, bioeconomy is a typical example where we can have a private and public partnership. It's because of its natures. It has a social benefit as well as it has a private benefits. So in order to achieve all these benefits, I think the private-public partnership is key areas where I think we can work to convince and also to implement bioeconomic agendas. So those are some of the highlights I wanted to share for you today, and thank you for your attention.
Well, now we have a 5-minute video message from Dr. Julio Verdaguer. He's the Secretary of Agriculture and Rural Development of the Government of Mexico.
Hello. I want to thank the organizers of the Global Bioeconomy Summit 2024 for the invitation to share a few thoughts with you. This is an issue of great importance for Mexico. We need to move to a far more sustainable agriculture, and we need to decarbonize the economy. We need to create hundreds of thousands of better-paying jobs in rural areas and intermediate cities to reach our goal of eradicating extreme poverty by 2030. Stimulating and supporting the bioeconomy is an important component of our whole program of government for 2024-2030. The government of President Claudia Sheinbaum has launched an ambitious program for industrialization, taking advantage of the rapidly growing investment driven in part by nearshoring of capital and the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has made Mexico the #1 trade partner of the United States. Agroindustry and the bioeconomy is one of the 8 sectors that have been prioritized under this industrial policy. Mexico produces close to 270 million tons of crop products each year. We estimate that this yields around 70 million tons of biomass. All of this creates a huge window of opportunity to grow the Mexican bioeconomy in the coming decade or so. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in the past government of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador approved a national bioeconomy strategy for the agricultural sector. Although there is now a new government led by President Claudia Sheinbaum, the strategy will remain in place with some minor adjustments. The strategy identifies 4 key objectives. First, adding value to biomass. 2, stimulating and supporting private investment in the bioeconomy. Third, increasing and improving scientific and technological research and innovation in the bioeconomy. Fourth, consolidating the governance of the bioeconomy. I will now briefly mention some of the key tasks under each one, emphasizing those that we need to start or even complete in the short term. First, adding value to biomass. We need to start by determining with greater precision the availability of agricultural biomass by each state and per crop, while we map the available technologies to take advantage of this biomass at different scales. Stimulating and supporting private investment is the next objective. We have started conversations with the main private sector associations to jointly identify the specific areas of interest and see what the main challenges that need to be overcome to materialize new investments. The government will not provide subsidies to private sector investors, particularly to large firms. However, we are ready to assist by streamlining regulations and, when needed, by targeting public or joint investments in water, energy, or transport infrastructure. We are particularly interested in supporting the participation of SMEs in the bioeconomy. And here we can be more proactive and ready to provide financing and technical assistance. One area of growing interest of many SMEs is in biofertilizers and other bioinputs. There are hundreds of initiatives across the country closely linked to the strong promotion of agroecology in Mexico, which is also an emphasis of the new government. Helping these small enterprises grow, consolidate, and expand their markets is certainly a government priority. In the end, we are only interested in the bioeconomy to the extent that it contributes to the well-being of the people of Mexico. Scientific and technological research and innovation in the bioeconomy is extremely important. For over 20 years before entering public office, President Sheinbaum worked as an energy scientist in our premier national university. And until a few weeks ago, she was still a faculty member. She's not only the first woman president in Mexico and in North America, but the first active scientist president as well. Illustrating the importance she gives to science, technology, and innovation, she has decreed the creation of a new Ministry of Science, Humanities, Technology, and Innovation. The new ministry will soon announce a set of strategic national development priorities for science and technology. One of them will be sustainable agriculture. It is under this national objective that Mexico will develop our scientific and technological capacity on the bioeconomy. Finally, we need to improve the governance of the bioeconomy. We are giving top priority to improving the legal and regulatory environment, which in many areas is either missing or is out of date. We look forward to building stronger ties and collaboration with international partners. We are eager to learn from the experience of others, as well as to contribute what we can to you and to others, particularly in the Global South. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some thoughts, and I look forward to seeing many of you in Mexico in the near future. Thank you very much.
So these two keynotes from the Global South can tell us something about what the development policy have to be so that the bioeconomy can contribute to the well-being of our populations in the Global South. So we have to keep in mind all those issues because bioeconomy is very demanding about economic development, but also social and environmental development. Those three dimensions have to be at the same level. So now, Ben, you can take the floor.
Very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks very much for the keynote addresses, and we are now going to have a panel discussion focusing on Africa. I'd like to invite to the stage our four panelists, Peter Menang, Jean-Jacques Muhinda, Anthony Nyong, and Peggy Otiboateng. Please, if you could come join us and sit from Lucia towards me in any order. Folks, so we've set the scene for this morning's discussion. We have an idea that there are individual countries doing lots of things in the bioeconomy, but we are also painfully aware that this is a global crisis we're in and that we do need to respond collectively. There we go. We have three panelists. We are missing one person. Peter. That is Peter. Jean-Jacques, great. I know that's Peggy. Anthony Nyong. Do we not have an Anthony? Great. So that gives us even more time to explore things. I'm going to take it. If Anthony does join us, that'll be great. So the format of the session is not to have any formal talks. We are merely going to be trying to provoke discussion related to bioeconomy development in Africa. And let me just briefly introduce the panel, and then I will get going with the questions. Peter Menang, at the end there, is the Director for Africa, Center for International Forestry and World Agroforestry, and a Global Coordinator of the ASB Partnership for the Tropical Forest Margin. Dr. Peggy Otiboateng is the Executive Director of the African Academy of Sciences, and Jean-Jacques Muhinda is the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, and he's the Regional Manager for East and Southern Africa. So that's our distinguished panel, and let us see what we can get out of them. The first question to all panelists is, Africa has already a substantial bioeconomy. Our economy is based very largely on agricultural, food, and agro-processed goods. We already have the bioeconomy. It's been around for a long time. So the question is, in the new thinking of bioeconomy, what needs to change, why, and how? So if I start here, Jean-Jacques, if you can start giving us your thoughts, and then Peggy and Peter will carry on and add to that.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Is this audible? Yeah, thank you very much, session chair, and good morning, everyone. I would like to appreciate this opportunity for inviting my organization, AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, to be part of this interesting conversation on global bioeconomy. And I'm here representing my president, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who couldn't make it this morning. So straight to the first question, and this is a critical one in the context of Africa. I'm sure that we all know the paradigm between climate change, environment, and the food systems. We have recent evidence showing that on one hand, that ag productivity globally, but specifically in the continent, is decreasing due to the impact of climate change as compared to a scenario with non-climate change. But on the other hand, what is very interesting, we also know, and I'm sure this is something that has probably been discussed during the course of different sessions, that food systems are also responsible for a large proportion of greenhouse gas emissions. We also know, to your point, that food systems are also responsible for deforestation to a large extent, and even responsible to almost 70% of species that are at risk of extinction. So this is a very difficult situation. And I believe, to my view, this is where bioeconomy comes into play and offers an opportunity to become technically a catalyst and even offering opportunities for sustainable transformation of food systems, specifically through adaptation of, and even adoption of different ways of producing, consuming, processing, trading, and even conserving food. Now, building on this, speaking to this particular first question here, there are a couple of things that need to change, specifically in the context of Africa. We know, for instance, that food production and food productivity is to some extent still informed or come from land expansion. And this is not sustainable. For instance, some research show that currently up to 25% of crop productivity actually come from land expansion. So this cannot continue, and this is one of the areas that we believe needs to be changing. Number two, I think as a continent, we need to learn from what has not worked everywhere, some other parts of the world, and avoid mistakes that have been made in the past in other parts of the world. And one good example here is the intentionality of adopting sustainable intensification. We have seen the impact of intensification in some parts of the world and the current consequences as far as environment and climate change is concerned. So it's very critical for us to learn from those mistakes and avoid it. So let me use two examples and close on this question and give an opportunity to the other colleagues. We do have currently very critical partnership. I mean, our institution supporting a couple of countries in Eastern, Southern, and Western Africa with the BMZ on areas of agroecology, with the IKEA Foundation on promoting regenerative agricultural and other nature-based production systems, if I may call it that way. And over time, we have learned that if we need to sustainably scale sustainable farming practices, there are things that we have to take into consideration. I'm glad that the colleague from Academia 2033 has already mentioned some of these issues. We did some work in Kenya here. We did a lot of work in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Ghana in partnership with BMZ and KFW on agroecology. And we realized that the reality is that some of those sustainable farming practices take time. And somebody needs to step in to provide incentives for farmers to be able to adopt and scale some of these innovations. So what does that mean? What that means is that we need to have and bring on board innovations in the front of policy, institutional innovations to be able to scale these practices. So the colleague from academia has unpacked this very well. The reality on the ground is that if you have to convince policymakers to provide and allocate resources on alternative production systems, you need to generate evidence. You need to show clearly business cases that show them that these are the returns on investment if you scale regenerative agriculture. These are the returns on investment in terms of job creation. These are the returns on investment in terms of cash economy. These are the returns of investment in terms of environmental sustainability. So policy and institutional innovation is extremely critical. Number two, he has also highlighted a point that I've picked on this particular question here, on the importance of mainstreaming bioeconomy, circular economy in the national planning processes, in the existing national development frameworks, to be able to be prioritized by national government and be given a resource allocation. In the context of Africa, he has alluded to CADAP, which is a continental planning framework that goes all the way down to the countries, and every country has a sector strategic plan, has a national investment plan. So it's my hope that some of the ideas coming from this conference can be packaged and be used to inform the prioritization in the national level. So any intervention that is not prioritized in the national investment plan does not get budget allocation. So we can share ideas, we can share scientific evidence. Unless we land it in some of those planning processes, these things cannot fly from a country perspective. So I'll stop here for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jacques. Really good points. I do note that there are, as I've said before, 1,000 ways to skin the bioeconomy development cat. And let's hear what Peggy has to say about how she would go about this task of changing the way that we do bioeconomy in Africa.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really pleased to see bioeconomy evolve, so far in Africa. And I would like to thank my colleagues for bringing Bioeconomy Summit to Africa. Because the first time we had it was in Germany. Yes, thank you. And I was the first chair of BioInnovate Africa. So, I've seen it grow. What needs to change? We need to accelerate Africa's research and innovation agenda. I mean, we've listened to the Agenda 2063, but the core of it was science, technology, and innovation. We haven't done really well in that. And the Africa Agenda 2063, the aspiration of the Africa we want, we also developed a science, technology, innovation strategy for Africa, which is 10 years, and we're moving to the next 10 years. And at the core of the Agenda 2063, we had 4 mutually reinforcing pillars. It's building and or upgrading research infrastructure. This is very key. And if we do it well, we'll be able to build, the Africa we want. But After 10 years, we haven't really done that. So what do we do too? We haven't, gone up to pace with it. So what do we have to do? We need to accelerate. We have so many models already in Africa. But I'd like to say when we talk about bioeconomy, it's not only the biological or the ecological. What I haven't heard is ocean economy. Africa is surrounded by ocean. There's so much that we can also harness in that. So the African Academy of Sciences is embarking on accelerating research in Africa. And I'm pleased that some of our EU partners are here, where they're working together with the African Academy of Sciences based on the Africa priority. And the priorities that you were developed, were identified. One of it is capacity building. That really resonates with the Africa agenda, that we need to also enforce professional and technical competencies. We cannot catch up if we don't do this. We need to build that ecosystem, the critical mass of science and technology innovators enough from lab to market, so that they can have a value chain, in science, technology, innovation. It's only by doing that that we'll be able to catch up. Because interestingly enough, when there was a reformation of the bioeconomy, which came out of bioecology, in Europe, at the same time, a year later, we were developing, an ambitious, 50-year agenda. And the core of it was bioeconomy, even though we didn't call it bioeconomy. For example, the green transition, as indicated, is bioeconomy. How are we taking advantage of that? The other, aspiration that we had, core to it, was to also provide an enabling environment for science, technology, and innovation development in Africa. How have we done this? The onus is on all of us to ensure that we speed up with science, technology, innovation. But what do we need to do? We need investment. African government have to invest in science, technology, innovation. So we need the investment. But we also appreciate, the investment of donors. But even though we have investment for donors, what do we need to do? We need equitable partnership. We need the knowledge of Africa to be recognized, and acknowledged, so that when we write that paper, the Africa component should be clearly identified. And this is the role of the African Academy of Sciences. So our second mandate is a think tank advisory, function. So we are the voice of science, for Africa. And what we want to do is we want to see this equitable partnership. We want to also harness, grow those world-class, researchers. We know we cannot do it alone. We have to do it with other partners. But if we do it with other partners, yesterday you heard we were talking about indigenous knowledge system. If we do it with others, how do we, acknowledge the Africa indigenous knowledge component or whatever research we do? So we have a long way to go, but I'm confident, that we'll get there. And with all of us working together, having a framework, it was presented earlier on. We need to work together as one African. We need African governments to invest in bioeconomy, but we also need partners to partner with that equitably so that we can define the framework within which we work. And by doing that, then we'll be accelerating the Africa we want. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peggy. And so I'm now going to be asking Peter what he can add to this mix. We've had policy development and carbon-friendly approaches that Jean-Jacques has introduced. We've had the importance of science, technology, and innovation, the knowledge and the skills side with partnerships across the world. What are you going to add to what Africa needs to do to change the way we're doing the bioeconomy and take it to the next level?
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good morning once again. Thanks to my previous speakers for raising all of the main issues. Coming from a world agroforestry perspective and a C4 perspective, I think we come to it from a trees perspective. And that's really important, as my CEO said this morning, that for me, I think I'll start by asking a question to the audience. Just a quick question. How many people in this room are from the Ministry of Finance? Anyone from the Ministry of Industrial Development? I think therein lies the problem. That's what needs to change. When you look at the dialogues that we have about green economy, we are not talking to the ministries of finance. As Peggy said, governments need to invest. If you are not talking to them, how do they see how important it is to invest? That's a big step. And I think that in this room, a lot of us, with Peggy, I think, that as scientists, need to really think about how do we make the investment case, that data available to governments about this. And I'll give you some quick examples. If you take 3 commodities in Africa, the top 10 3 commodities in Africa, cocoa, coffee, oil, rubber, oil palm, cashew nuts, gum arabica, these commodities make up between 14 and 19% of GDP at any time you look at them, depending on the price. A lot of them have a huge potential for transforming nutrition because of the micronutrients in the nuts, in the fruits, in avocado. But we primarily grow avocado for exports, not for domestic consumption. And the reasons for those are simple. I think, Ben, when you spoke at the beginning, you were saying, you know, Africa's economy is based on products and services that are processed. I'd like to take away the processed part. Because when we look at all of the 3 commodities, 90% or 96% is exported raw. Raw. I'll give you one simple example. Africa supplies 60% of the world's cashew nuts. When our farmers grow cashew nuts, for the majority, only 10% of the cashew fruit is used. The nut is 10%. We've got 90%, that is the apple, that is biomass, that is not used. We've got the shell, that could be biofuel, highly compacted briquettes, that is not used. We've got a lot of biomaterial that is wasted. And I can tell you, for a lot of West Africa, that thing is exported whole to India and Vietnam, completely whole. So you're exporting all of your biomass that could be serving nutrition and could be serving other things. So I think that if you think about it, that 90% we need to move from 90% export to at least to unprocessed raw to at least 40% or bring that down. I'll give you an example. When we did an analysis for the government of Kenya, which we wanted to present to them, some sort of scenario analysis looking at an investment case. And we look at 8 top 3 commodities in Kenya. If President Ruto took 1 billion of the 15 billion trees that he wanted to plant and planted these 8 3 commodities, in 10 years, they'll be making $56 billion from like 10% more processing. That will come with 3 million jobs, and that will significantly transform the energy sector. But most importantly, if you take a crop like gum arabica from acacia trees, the acacia pods themselves, not even the gum that is being sold now, which makes $100 million for Sudan and only makes $200,000 for Kenya, with bigger potential than Sudan, actually. If you look at that, the pod is extremely good cow feedstock. Kenyans buy the pods from Sudan for $20 a 30 kilogram bag during drought to feed cows. So it's more valuable, a part of the plant is more valuable for feeding livestock during drought and therefore enhancing adaptation to climate change, and that is the economy. It's more valuable than the gum itself. And Kenya, even though Kenya has the biggest potential in the region, Kenya still imports $1 million of processed gum arabica for its food industry. If you take the total oil palm capacity in Africa, we import 2 times the export capacity for oil palm. That's the irony that we don't see. So it's a dynamic that needs to change, and only 3 things can change it. 1, that we make a genuine data-driven, science-driven business case to our governments. Number 2, that we ramp up in those investments technology that is needed for processing and value addition within a framework of small and medium-sized enterprises. And number 3, what Peggy said, which is really important, ramping up our scientific capacity, our technology capacity to get to a threshold that will allow this to happen. I'll stop there.
This panel is not disappointing. This is absolutely fantastic. And thanks, Peter. You've kind of wrapped up as well by pointing to the relevance of what the other comments are. We've had 3 very different perspectives, but they are all interrelated. So you've spoken about the value chain and the importance of developing that so that it's not just raw products that we develop. We use the raw product to develop further value, create jobs, create knowledge, use the science and technology infrastructure to assist with that, and develop policy. And I think the key point that you did make, Peter, one that really shot home, is that we need a whole of government approach to get behind the bioeconomy. So I think some really good points there. I'm not going to then probe further. I'm going to go to the next question. I think that was a really useful first session. So the next question I have, and it does follow on, Africa has the world's largest intact ecosystems, supporting a quarter of global biodiversity and wild megafauna. It's also home to 65% of the world's arable land and 20% of global tropical rainforest area. So the question that I'm asking the panel is, does this mean that Africa is well positioned to chart and leverage bioeconomic development? And what do we need to do to safeguard the environment and the people in developing the bioeconomy? I'm going to start in the reverse order, if you don't mind. So Peter, I know you've just spoken, but can I get your thoughts on what we need to do to safeguard bioeconomic development? And do we have a foot up because of this incredible wealth that we have?
Coming from Cameroon, the Congo Basin, this is a very emotional subject, so I don't know how much time you have. But 2 points I'd like to make. Number 1, I think, is that we need to ramp up all ecosystem benefits that the people that live around these systems derive. I think that studying the Congo Basin for the last 25 years for me has two big revelations. If the people remain poor, I'm sorry, we will not have those ecosystems in the next 30 years. This is a reality. And why is that? If you look at the Congo Basin, in 2000, when the concerted effort started for the Congo Basin, the population was about 75 million. Today is 170. In 2050, it would be 300 million people. All of our investments have been in conservation. They have not been in producing the wood that they need. It hasn't been in providing the food that they need in the right way. My colleague from Agra talked about sustainable intensification. Production in the Congo Basin has not changed for the last 30 years per unit hectare. How do you expect that people would not, with those population increases, people wouldn't increase agricultural land? This is a given. Now, if we can't increase and transform in an ecological manner the way in which food production is done, I'm sorry, no chance. Secondly, I think we need to really think about poverty as the central part of the story. If these people remain poor, I can't emphasize this more. 30 years, no biodiversity in the Congo Basin. You can take this or leave it. But the population of the Congo Basin is not only increasing there. I can tell you, as we speak, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda three countries have half of the total population of the Congo Basin. Half of their timber comes from the Congo Basin. So if you don't increase production of timber in this part of the world, whether you like it or not, illegal timber is going to come from the Congo Basin. So we need to think strongly about production, but also about a bioeconomy around ecosystem services that will enhance the economy of the poor people in these areas for us to be able to benefit, but for the world to also be able to benefit from the ecosystem assets that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Provocative thoughts, but really important. I note that South Africa's unemployment is currently at 33%, the formal definition. It's 42% if you have the expanded definition of unemployment. And the view is that we may be sitting on a time bomb. This poverty issue is absolutely critical, and that is part of the bioeconomy, the equity component that must be part of bioeconomy development across the world. So really good points. Thanks very much, Peter. Peggy, over to you. What do you want to add to the fact that we are sitting on incredible biodiversity wealth and incredible opportunity in the bioeconomy space? And does this naturally translate into something that we can take advantage of? And what do we need to do to safeguard our environment and our people?
Thank you very much for those questions. I have a slide which we roll in. It is, I appreciate, what you said, but there's still hope. We have scientists who are doing real science to solve, the problems. And hopefully, some of those scientists, will be displayed in the PowerPoint presentation that we made. But just to capture some of them, one is we have, a young mid-career scientist who is training other PhDs and also master students. And his project is in plant biotechnology. And this is a PI in Eswatini. He's utilizing plant tissue culture to boost rural fruit and vegetable production. And he wants to do this and also increase pepper and orange, flesh sweet potatoes using agro waste from road food crops. So he's using, the waste, to be able to develop that. And it's not only going to, end in the lab, but he aims to improve food security, affordability, and high quality seedling. Another project, which we have, it's from the Congo, and you'll be pleased to know that. Christian Nkaga, he's in green nanotechnology. Nanotechnology has great potential. And if we link it to biotechnology, there's so much that we can do in that. But as we said, we need to create those critical mass of scientists linked to rural, linked to business, and also linked to the finance. So we need that ecosystem to be able to, increase bioeconomy. And this young man is creating eco-friendly antimicrobial product from banana plant waste. There's so much waste, but we can get so much value out of it. Yesterday, we were in the public health in medicine. Again, we haven't talked too much about, the essence of bioeconomy that we can derive from our medicinal plants in Africa. And he is developing surface sanitizers, water treatment, and antimicrobial drugs. And he's doing this to promote, resource use and pioneering infection, control innovation. Another person, this is in Ghana, Dr. Edemahu. We don't have too many women in oceanography. This is shy. Women shy from that. But she is working on oceanography and oyster conservation. There's so much money in oyster, but not only that, she's also doing it to influence climate change, from the ocean, study and climate change and how we can have climate resilience, but also linked to food production. She's addressing the decline of oyster population due to climate change along the West African coast. So not only in Ghana, but she's doing it for the whole of West Africa. And she's aiming to provide insights for the sustainable future of oyster fisheries. We haven't talked much about fishery, I'm sure because it's ocean, but Africa, fishery is also another huge area for bioeconomy. Even inland fishing, the lake, but how do we make sure that we don't over-exploit, but also produce? The last person, again, I just picked a few of the selected. The last one is in the last person, is in Uganda. Our colleague in Uganda is, in Ivory Coast, is using African rice species pan-genome to develop genetic markers for disease resistance. And this is to enhance food security and reducing economic losses in rice production. I brought out this example to show that it is not only, gloom in Africa. There are young people, and there's so many thousands of those young people. But now the challenge is, how do you ensure that these researchers get out of the lab to the market? And this is what the African Academy of Sciences is doing. And I think I'll encourage that the next step, when we are developing the framework for bioeconomy, we need to look at the whole value chain, from the producers to the users, and also for us to also conserve. But as a way forward, hopefully there'll be time is that we also need to assess, a lot of, we don't evaluate and we don't have numbers. If you don't evaluate, you don't know what you have. And we also need to, align this to the digital revolution, data. We talk about data, our genomic data. Do we have a repository in Africa for even all the data that we have? And I'll encourage that from here, and the African Academy of Sciences provide that opportunity. Open science. How do we link bioeconomy to open science? In Europe, they're linking that. How do we share the information that we have? How do we make sure that people leapfrog using the information? How do we use our own information, in pharmaceutical industry so that Africa will benefit from it? So if we're talking about policy issues, we really have to do it at multi-level so that all of us together, we can make it work for Africa's sustainable development, but in particular, for Africa's bioeconomy. Thank you.
What a wonderful ending. Thank you. Great. So, Jean-Jacques, it's chance we are running out of time now, so it's going to be your last word here. But what can you add to the fact of this huge, the incredible biodiversity wealth, and what do we need to do, and how do we make sure it is safe?
Thank you, Chair. And I agree, a lot has already been covered by the two colleagues here. But I tend to agree with what both of them have said. These are just statistics and potential. But if we don't do the right thing, they can actually play against us. So let me add a few points here in terms of what needs to be done to safeguard the environment, but also the biodiversity. So the same ecosystems that we're talking about here in the perspective of Africa, these are the same areas where the agricultural extension is happening. Land expansion is happening, encroaching on those same ecosystems. What does that mean? What it means for us is that the longer term solutions is definitely adopting alternative production system that reduce pressure on both natural resources, but also on biodiversity. I think a lot has already been covered here. Number two, we need to understand that in the context of Africa, again, in those landscapes, there's a huge competition on the use of biomass. Remember, the agrarian communities around those forest basins that Peter has been talking about, they rely on those same product for food production, for energy, for all sorts of use. So we need to think about reducing pressure of natural use. And I believe this is where the nexus between food production, energy, environment comes into play. So we haven't talked, maybe it has been discussed in this conference about renewable energy. We need to think about it if we need to conserve and sustain these ecosystems here, to provide alternative energy sources to communities so that we can preserve some of these ecosystems and biodiversity. Number three, before I close here, I know we're running out of time, is the whole issue of reducing post-harvest losses and value addition. I think Peter talked about value addition from a forest product perspective, but let me emphasize on it again from an agricultural perspective. If we don't reduce the current post-harvest losses, if we don't add value to our products, it has already been talked about on a timber product and others. In this context, I'm talking about crop product. We don't provide alternative income to farmers. We don't provide enough income to farmers. As a result, they still go back to those same ecosystems and encroach them for food production and alternative livelihood. So it's so critical. 2 weeks ago, I was in China attending a conference like this on agri-food innovations. I was surprised to see how many product companies in China can make out of one product like soybean, one product like wheat, just unlimited. But here, we're busy exporting raw product like Peter has been saying. So those are new aspects we don't think about in terms of post-harvest value addition and the relationship it has with ecosystem services and reducing pressure on environment. And I close by saying again something I said earlier on. The reality on the ground from our experience in food systems is that the bioeconomy solutions are very costly. and they take long time to yield results. We need to unpack what it means and build strong business cases and be able to convince policymakers. He was asking a question about people who are from the Ministry of Finance. So I've worked in the government. If you need to convince, for instance, a Minister of Finance to invest in alternative inputs, let's say bio input versus mineral fertilizer subsidies, you need to have concrete evidence on the returns on investment and how it pays back in terms of environment conservation. So it's very critical we put this on the table and understand what it means exactly when it comes to putting it into practice at country level. Thank you.
Fantastic. Folks, if we can have a round of applause for this panel. And a question is, are we having a photograph? Shall we stand forward, which was what I was told earlier? Are we going to have a photograph? Otherwise, let me thank the panel. What is obvious is that there are a diversity of approaches to developing the bioeconomy. It's a really complex environment, but we all need to do something. We all need to lead the charge, and there are these interconnected links between them, as Peter indicated quite clearly. And thanks so much to the panel for your considered input on these questions, and look forward to working with you to provide these solutions in Africa for the world. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, my co-chair, who is going to introduce the next session. And thank you, folks. Really, really good. Peggy, thank you so much. It doesn't seem to be. So, Lucia, over to you for the next session.
So, entrepreneurs greatly impact the transformation towards the bioeconomy on the micro level by turning perceived opportunities into innovative bio-based business models through an experimental learning process. This is why in this second panel, the issue is innovation and entrepreneurship in the bioeconomy. For that, we have invited 3 CEOs from African bioeconomy-based startups. And as I introduce the speakers, you can come here. Daniel Ndima. Daniel, oh, here you are. Daniel Ndima is a chief executive officer of Cape Bio. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, you can sit there. Then Ginette Kadide Kinyana. Ginette, okay, you're there. Okay, Ginette is a founder and CEO of Carrier Products. Thank you. And then Caroline Nicolas Ninjao. Caroline Nicolas is a founder and CEO of MSOL. Okay, thank you. Thank you, the 3. Daniel, you can take the floor.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to the organizers for an invitation. So this is a 6-year-old startup from South Africa. So today I will be talking about the AI technology for biomolecule discovery from microbial biodiversity hotspots. Next slide. It's quite a lot, but I'm going to say a few things. Please read if you can or observe. So in South Africa, we've got what we call Cape Floral Kingdom, Cape Biosphere. It's one of the richest biodiversity hotspots in the world. Here we are interested in microbial biodiversity. You know, we mine soils and waters, and we sequence, as you can see, through the, I don't know if I can be able to point, but through the sequence, natural or normal sequencing processes, NGS. And this process is quite extensive and long, and it doesn't help us in identifying biomolecules for either diagnostics or therapeutics. So we then, next slide, developed an AI platform. This is the convergence of bioinformatics, machine learning, deep learning, and structural biology to characterize these molecules so that we can then enter into biomanufacturing process. Next slide. So this is our value chain or our processes in terms of how we develop these products. Next slide. These are some of the products that we have developed using these enzymes from microbial hotspots, quite unique. Next slide. The HIV viral load, we know Africa is burdened with HIV, and Africa is a net importer of these diagnostics. And during the pandemic, we developed Africa's first PCR test using the same material to reduce reliance on importation. Next slide. We also work with Africa CDC for some of the priority diseases and using the same material. Next slide. So this AI platform that I'm talking about is going to be launched as a service business. So this is a spin-off from the main business, because we realize that its value proposition is not only for ourselves, but also for broader market, because out of this microbial diversity, or what we have been able to build as a technology, we identify novel therapeutics, peptides, enzymes, proteins, synthetic gene clusters, etc. Next slide. And the track from this technology, the track record from this technology speaks for itself that really, if we can isolate it from the main business and service the broader global market, actually there is more value. Next slide. Why are we doing this? We know the plethora of unknown microbials or unknown genes that can be used for either diagnostics or therapeutics. So this is what we're trying to do. So we build it for metagenomic analysis or analytics. However, we realized that through the structural configurations that it has, it can also assist some of the pharmaceutical companies in terms of designing or redesigning or optimizing their molecules. Next slide. You can pass this one. Yes, this is funded by Technology Innovation Agency and supported by National Department of Science Innovation. And the first person that I spoke to about this technology before it was even developed was actually Ben. That is about 4 years ago. Next slide. So we've got these 3 clients that we need to service as soon as possible. They are not going to be using our material. They have their own molecules. So we can use any biological data to be able to provide insights so that decisions can be taken. Next slide. So we know that the AI in drug discovery is growing and is about to reach about $5 billion by 2028. And we have done market analysis and how we fit. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, these are 2 companies in South Africa, one in the US. And these are the discussed or agreed payments, but there's more clients that are coming because even researchers want to analyze their metagenomic data sets, even biological data sets. Even though we developed it for environmental metagenomes, is quite critical in even known protein or molecule sequences. Next slide. Next slide. That's the conclusion. So we are raising $3.5 million to set up this company. That is pre-seed. And we are actively engaging with VCs in the US, but also other investors in South Africa to make this a reality so that we can service the broader market. And the US partner really works with companies that are going through clinical trial phase 1 to phase 3. So they are integrating our technology through their value chain. That is a partnership that I shared. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, you're going to be there. Yeah. Good morning. I'm Jeanette Kadire-Kinyana from Burundi. I began in Canada, and then from 2014, I went to Burundi. It was with the NGO to end malaria with the catnip project. So from the NGO, we went to a social business called Kadire Products, like a company.
So now we are now able to commercialize, to put in the market our products from catnip, but now we deal with more than 30 plants. But now I will focus to the catnip, and then after I will talk about Artemisia. So from the beginning, our project is linked with MDGs and SDG, because in base of our project, there is communities. So all the communities, they grow plants, and we buy from them, and they bring to the factory. You can see how we began with a very small, but with with the BioInnovate support, was able to make a big factory with the distiller. So we are able to make essential oils, many kinds of essential oils. There is, of course, catnip to make different products, like repellent, cream, soap, different products, but others plants, like rosemary, lemongrass, basilic, many. So I would like to thank BioInnovate and CEDA, because our business now, it was very small, but now we can say is in the middle social business. So catnip is a plant that you can eat like a tea, like you can make essential oil to make different products, but you can also clean houses with disinfectant. Of course, you have to mix with other vegetable oils and other hydrosol, but I want to show you that with catnip and with the Artemisia, I will show you, with the catnip, it's for human health, even for animals, and with even for environmental. The same with Artemisia. Artemisia is good for environmental, for the soil, is good for animals, is good for human being. So those are our products. We have more than 80 different products. Okay, I told you about that. Now conclusion. Conclusion is impact from the project to Burundi. From 2016, there is no malaria epidemic in Burundi because of this tea and repellent and different. We prevent malaria, and we make a lot of impact and create jobs, and we put a lot of money in communities. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. How do I keep my... Oh, yeah. Okay. As I wait for my slides to come, as I was introduced, I'm from Tanzania. I am the director of a company that was started from BioInnovate, and this is Envisol. And Envisol, what we do, we treat wastewaters biologically, and we are able to recover energy direct the energy for positive use, especially to the entity that is producing it or outside that. But also we treat it to meet environmental laws, and artistically, our treatment systems have to look nice so that when you're treating wastewater, it doesn't have to look like the wastewater itself. That's what we do. But in this presentation, I'm presenting an innovation that we are partly involved in because I'm a professor of a university, retired professor, but emeritus. And this is about a dual reactor for rapid biogas fertilization and biogas and fertilizer production. And it's been spearheaded by my student, Petro Mamlima. Next, please. Now, next. The reason that this was started is the fact that if you look around universities when we are doing research to generate data, which are very important for the systems that I'm actually developing, you find that we do not have good systems to get the data simply because we are using these kind of technologies to get the data. If it's fertilizer by compost, this is what you will see. If it's a biogas, you can sometimes get the smaller units of biogas, or sometimes in lab we use the inverted beakers to be able to get the data. And we think it gives you some data, but to get more reliable data, we will need more control. And that is what is actually intended in this, that a dual reactor which can actually be used either for digestion or for composting is being developed. And next, please. And this should be able to create more reliable data. Now, it is not like there are no such units in the world, but the technologies that we could get from developed countries are pretty expensive. And we have done a search in Tanzania, for example. None of the people that are actually researching on these matters have a unit like this in the lab to be able to do it. So we intend, through this innovation, to produce units that we can use either for biodigestion or for composting that will be distributed in laboratories of the universities. And through that, we can do much better research on additives that we put to enhance digestion, on directions that new directions we want to take for composting and get more reliable data. Next, please. Next, yes. Now, the first innovation, we controlled moisture content, temperature, mixing, and we had 15 liters digester. But on the second one, we now added some other things in the control, which means physical and remotely operated. We reduced the size of the reactor to 10 liters, and we have other things like pH, nutrients, and we can sense them and data log them. And the thing is, we would like something that is automated, energy efficient, cost effective, and user friendly, and therefore reliable and sustainable. The data that we can get here, these are research data, they are more reliable, they can be more reproducible, and therefore we can use them to get the data that we really need to be able to know the directions we are taking for further application. But we also expect that some of the features that we will get from this, we can apply in real systems to improve their performance, to improve their working, and therefore get a more efficient system for really doing the work in the field. Next, please. This is the model that has been developed, you can go on. Next, please. And if you take the QR here, you can actually get the details of this reactor. We got a patent of that. Next, please. And what has been a value addition to this include the yields, which we can get better yields from the units, shorter retention times. It's considered a smart working facility now because it's automated and it can be reproducible. If you compare with international technologies, one major problem is cost, but the other one is the fact that there is high operation and maintenance cost, and it's usually outside bias, because if you have had a problem, you have to get the experts from Europe or from wherever to come and fix it. But if we develop this unit within Tanzania and East Africa, then we are within the system, and therefore we'll be able to come and fix the problem that we have. And we will develop it to fit our environment. That is what is actually key in this development. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, with these three examples, we can see that these startups are not only startups, and that's fantastic, but they also resolve human development problems. So this is what bioeconomy is. No, so I think these three examples are very interesting to keep in mind. What can startups make for the bioeconomy? Well, Ben, now you can take.
Great. If we can all step forward for a photograph, the chap is here. Thank you very much. The point to note, really inspiring stuff. They haven't talked about the adversity, the challenges that they had to overcome to get to where they are, but this is the inspiring stuff. And the point to note, if you can, the point to note is this is how the bioeconomy will develop in Africa. The SMMEs are the mainstay of the economic development in Africa, around the world too, but particularly in Africa. So this is really the future of the bioeconomy. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. You can now leave, and we are then going to move on to the next session. We've departed a little bit from the normal procedure. We have appointed a moderator who's going to handle the next session, looking at perspectives from Africa, Latin America, and Asia, particularly because we're all in this challenge together and we should be sharing experiences. So we've asked Francis Johnson to be the moderator for this next session, and if he can please come up to the stage. Francis? I thought I saw him earlier. Francis Johnson, not here. Okay. Okay, so then we're going to have to proceed with just myself and Lucia to chair this, and I'm sorry we are a little bit unprepared. Please bear with us. We are looking at bioeconomy pathways, perspectives on evolving visions and emerging strategies in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And we will have 4 speakers, and their bios are in the program, so you have access to that. So please bear with me. Here we go. Francis, I see you. I'm hugely relieved to see you. Let me introduce Francis. Francis is the Senior Research Fellow and Climate Policy Lead for the Stockholm Environment Institute, Asia Center, based in Bangkok. And he's also been a lead author on the IPCC in 2019. So he has a wealth of bioeconomy-related background. And Francis, welcome. I'm very glad to see you.
Yeah.
You want?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Oh, thanks, yeah. So I'd like to ask our panelists to come up first, and then I'll introduce them when they speak. Yeah, so Monica Trujillo, Fortunate Miambi. Dr. Juan Torn Songasiri. And Dr. Aisha Nakito. Yeah, so this session is titled Bioeconomy Pathways, and we're giving a overview across the regions. And you might wonder why we use this term pathways quite a lot, and it's because we all are in agreement about critical importance of the bioeconomy, but we're in less agreement about how to get there. So that's really the reason. You can take the next. So the 4 regions we're talking about here include Southeast Asia and East Africa and Latin America, and also we'll be covering the African Union. So first I'd like to call Monica Trujillo to speak first. She's a research fellow at the Latin America Center of the SEI in Bogota, Colombia.
Okay. Thank you, Francis, and good morning to all of you. I am going to talk about the Latin America visions of the bioeconomy. So I will start by saying that different visions of the bioeconomy coexist in the region, in different levels, different priorities, but they all coexist in Latin America. So, of course, it started with the vision of the biotechnology around increasing productivity, yields in the agricultural sector, and also in the biofuel. Over the years, other visions have positioned it very strongly, seeking a balance between the economic growth, the generation of income, generation of employment, and also environmental care and social inclusion. That's why the vision related to bioresources, bioecology, and social bioeconomy are getting a very strong priority in the region. So this concept evolutions and variety of different visions responds to the particular context of the region and the priorities in each countries, right? So in environmental terms, Latin America is one of the most diverse regions on the planet. It is the wettest country in the world and contains 8 mega diverse countries. So, as you know, one of the most important ecosystems in Latin America is the Amazon. The Amazon is very important for its high levels of social and biological diversity, but also because it is one of the largest carbon sinks in the world. However, this wonder is in grave danger today. As you know, in addition to deforestation, it is currently suffering from devastating fires and dramatic reduction of river flows. So between 2023 and 2024, more than 50 millions of hectares of natural forest have been burned. So this is a dramatic transformation of this ecosystem and its valuable environmental services for the planet. For this reason, bioeconomy can't not ignore this reality and this priority, and it must seek solution for this problem. So in economic terms, this region is still recovering from the worst socioeconomic crisis that it has had, the COVID-19 pandemic. It impacted all the socioeconomic indicators in the countries and in the region. And in economic terms, agricultural plays a very important role in GDP generation and employment generation as well. It is the main source of income in rural areas. Thus, the bioeconomy must continue to focus on economic development, economic growth, employment, income. In social terms, the region it has great social diversity. More than 700 indigenous groups lives in the region, and there are more than 500 different languages. And here, the 99% of the companies in Latin America are micro, small, and medium-sized companies. So these are very important actors in the economic sector. They contribute to almost 70% of the employment generation in the region. So that is why like the social bioeconomy approach that we heard yesterday from the Secretary of Bioeconomy in Brazil is so important in the region. So this region has experienced a very strong dynamism in bioeconomy terms in the last 4 years. Costa Rica and Colombia launched their bioeconomy national strategies on 2020. And this year has been very important because 3 countries also launched their national bioeconomy strategies. Those are Brazil, Ecuador, and Uruguay. So this is a crucial moment in the region for this sustainable economic model. And responding to this context, the Latin American network was created last year in response to this dynamism. This network has been led by the Inter-American Institute for Agricultural Cooperation, but also includes more than 60 institutions from different countries in the region. So this is a space for discussion, exchange of knowledge, exchange of experience, and also a space to enhance capacities regarding bioeconomy. Inspired by the process of the G20 of agreeing in the 10 high-level principles for the bioeconomy, this network also launched the high-level principles for the bioeconomy in Latin America. So that responding for the context and the priorities in the region. So these are one of the key issues that address this principle: to ensure and restore, regenerate, and sustainable use of the biodiversity, and the fair and equitable distribution of its benefits is in the highest priority in the region. And it is important to mention that the COP16 that is currently taking place in Colombia in this moment has one of its objectives is to connect the biodiversity agenda and the climate change agenda. So bioeconomy is a very strong strategy to connect those 2 agendas. And that is something that we are going to position in the COP16. And there are more than 20 events related to bioeconomy and biodiversity. And this is a strong message to send also to the COP30 that is going to be held in Brazil next year, the COP of climate change. So bioeconomy as a connector of these 2 agendas. Another principle for the region from this Latin America Bioeconomy Network is to promote economic, social, and environmental sustainability, contributing to the SDGs, to ensure food and nutritional security for the population, to be grounded in science, technology, knowledge, and innovation, connecting traditional knowledge, no? It's very important, that connection in the region. And respect national, local objectives, values, vision, different visions, incorporating ethnic approach and cultural diversity. Also, of course, the generation of new income sources, green jobs, and including vulnerable groups. So that's like a summary of this principle from this Latin America network to implement in the next years. That is the next priority. So to end my presentation, I am going to remark a message that we have been talking around from yesterday, that we found different types of bioeconomy in the region. We just mentioned two, but in the middle there are multiples, no? There is a small-scale bioeconomy related to biodiversity that is very important to address the priorities and the problems that nowadays has the region. And there is a high-tech bioeconomy that also is very important, focused on the traditional agricultural sector, increasing yields, increasing income, economic growth, and both of them has to coexist, and there are different instruments to promote these two types of bioeconomy. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Monica, for a fast tour of the Latin America and the new Latin American network. Next, we have Fortunate Muyambi. Can take the next slide. Yeah, Fortunate is the Deputy Executive Director of East African Science and Technology Commission based in Rwanda, and you heard him last night launching the new report on the state of bioeconomy in Eastern Africa. Thanks, Fortunate.
Thank you, Francis. Good morning once again. I will take you through the pathways that shape bioeconomy in East Africa. Under the bioeconomy development in EAC, we have a very significant potential to support various initiatives and critical development in bioeconomy, especially helping to deliver the following outcomes. One is the sustainable industrialization, which includes job creation and green growth. The second is improving food security. As the previous speakers said, in Africa, we still have a lot to do with food systems and agriculture, especially adding value, addition, and also value chains and processing to promote a secure and resilient food system in Africa. And also improving health. As you know, biodiversity in the region, to have cost-effective bio-based product systems from various biopharmaceutical products and also other healthy bio products. The creation of new bio-based products, including biomaterials for construction, bio-inputs for agriculture, enzyme for industry, and also bio-based food stocks are also a niche for bioeconomy development in the region. Also linking farmers and entrepreneurs to market opportunities, both to local, national, and international markets, is very important in developing bioeconomy in Africa. And then protecting the environment through waste disposal and conversion, today which threatens the ecosystem of freshwater resources, and we can also get useful products out of these waste, especially the municipal waste and agricultural waste. And then also creating forms of new forms of clean, sustainable bioenergy, such as biofuel for transportation, electric generation, and also industries, bioproducts. What are the potential bioeconomic pathways that we have seen in Africa? One is the food security and sustainable agriculture. Basically, we develop new bio-based products, technologies and solutions that will strengthen food and feed production to ensure food security. The second is health and well-being, basically developing these bio-based healthcare sectors, contributing and building to indigenous knowledge and practice, and the biopharmaceutical comes in handy for this pathway. And then we also have bio-based industrial development, basically to stimulate sustainable economic growth that add value to underutilized renewable resources. And then lastly, sustainable energy to increase production and use of sustainable bioenergy, and also developing a wide range of bioenergy products, both for use at household level and industrial level. What are the initiatives that we have so far seen in East Africa? Yesterday, I hinted on the East African Regional Bioeconomy Strategy, of which we are now going to also nationalize it and start developing the national bioeconomy strategies in the region that will entail action plans and also implementation and also M&E plans for implementation of bioeconomy in the region. We have also developed a bioeconomy observatory knowledge sharing portal, of which it provides a regional open access repository for bioeconomy data and information, and we shall also start now producing reports, annual reports out of this data. We also started regional bioeconomy conferences with the Stockholm Environment Institute and the BioInnovate Africa to increase awareness of stakeholders on bioeconomy, enhanced stakeholders' commitments, and also strengthening coordination and collaboration and partnership in the region. And also, yesterday you saw us launching the regional status report for 2024. We also, this is the second one. The first one was the report 2022. And finally is the EAC Regional Bioeconomy Roundtable Policy Dialogues. Basically, we are targeting decision and policy makers, especially giving evidence-based information, which are scientific knowledge exchange, support evidence-based policy making, especially on standard harmonization for regional research and development projects. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fortunate. And we're going to continue our tour and move to Thailand and Southeast Asia. Dr. Waranton Songkasiri is director of the Biochemical Engineering and Systems Biology Research Group at the Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology in Thailand, and she's going to give us that tour. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Francis. My name is Waranton Songkasiri from Thailand. I'm come from the National Research Center under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation. So I will give you the tour of bioeconomy in Thailand first, and then maybe a glimpse of what we've been doing in the region. So in Thailand, we have the policy called BCG economic model. B stands for bio, C circular, and G is green. So you might not see the bioeconomy policy, but you will see the BCG economic model in Thailand here. So this policy has been initiated by the research community and promoted by the government. The Prime Minister declared the BCG in action policy as the national agenda in 2021. And we have the 5 years plan for this policy. You can see that there are 4 drivers and 4 enablers in this policy. The first one is sectoral development. There are 4 sectors that we are focusing on: food and agriculture, medical and wellness, energy and biochemical materials, and tourism and creative economies. And the aim or the goal is to increase the economic value of this 4 sector from 21% of the GDP to 24% in 5 years. So it's in about 2 years from now. And the main components is that we believe that our nation's strengths lie among biodiversity and cultural diversity. So that's why the reason we select this 4 sector for value creation. And there are also supporting policies that every ministry have to align together and have the implementation plan for BCG in action national agenda. So the supporting policies align within law and regulation reforms, national STI, science, technology, innovation, infrastructure. We create the area-based economic corridor, Eastern Economic Corridor for innovation, Northern Economic Corridor, and also the Southern Economic Corridor, focusing on different or each state specific in each region. Next. Incentive. The Thailand Board of Investment, or BOI, also creates several incentives for investors and also for researchers to create value for the bioeconomy and circular and green economy, financial support and market promotion. So I would like to give you the example of the partnership or multi-stakeholder partnership in Thailand here, focusing on the Kaswa starch industry, Kaswa value chain. So we talk about 4 sectors in the value chain: agriculture, starch production, waste treatment and biogas generation, and the last one is the high value products. So we have been declared National Kaswa Starch Net Zero Roadmap for the nation last year. This has been the collaborative effort between the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research, Innovation, Ministry of Agriculture, the industry, Thai Tapioca Starch Association, the Thai Chamber of Commerce, also the other network as well. We have, from the calculation, in 2022, the starch industry emit approximately 2.17 million tons CO2 equivalent those year. So we aim to decrease the carbon emission by 50%. That's very ambitious goal for us in 2030, but we already calculated and assessed it that we believe that we could do this. For example, in agricultural sector, we have the program Best Agricultural Practice under the Ministry of Agriculture, or optimization of fertilization use for the starch production, increase the productivity, and also utilize renewable energy, biogas production for heat and electricity, or solar energy, and for the other high value as well. So we have to increase approximately 1 million tons CO2 equivalent in about 6 years here. With those example or success case, we expand our effort to the region, to the ASEAN region, to Vietnam, Laos, PDR, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Myanmar as well. So we are creating sustainable Kaswa value chain in ASEAN. And in each country, we have the country coordinator that can organize and bring in ministries, bring in government agency, bring in industry to pull the effort together. And in this pillar, in this community or the network, we have 3 pillars. The first one is knowledge dissemination. We have curriculum for cassava cultivation. We have curriculum for starch production. We have curriculum for biogas production. We have curriculum for bioethanol production, and so on. We have solution provision. We have carbon footprint platform. We have energy and resource efficiency platform. And also we have technological innovation. This have been talk a lot in this summit because we are trying to, we are having proven local technology that's developed, thank you, that develop inside the country and then expand in the region as well. So those are the two pillars. And the enabler, the last enabler for our BCG agenda is the global network. So that's why we are here. We are trying to expand our sustainable cassava value chain at the global scale. So please come talk to us if you are interested in join us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Warren Ton. We're going to finish our world tour by widening the scope from East Africa to the African Union. So I invite Dr. Aisha Nakito, and she's a scientist with Academia 2063 and also the interim program lead for the Malabo Montpellier panel. So thanks very much, Aisha, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Francis. Morning once again, everyone. So I'll be speaking about the African Union and the Agenda 2063 and its link to the bioeconomy. Agenda 2063 seeks to deliver on a set of 7 aspirations, each with its own set of goals. And if these are achieved, it will move Africa closer towards achieving its vision for the year of 2063. So these are the moonshots inspired by the 7 aspirations of Agenda 2063. And so as we looked at different dialogues since yesterday, just to give you an overview, is that a bioeconomy involves knowledge-based production and use of biological resources to provide products, processes, and services in all sectors. So here we have the use of biological resources from land and sea to provide food products, medicinal products, as well as textiles and also energy. So looking at aspiration 1, the goals that we have here, inclusive growth and sustainable development would require lowering youth unemployment rates. So some of this would require implementation of innovative strategies, such as advancing Africa's food processing sector. So the Malabo Montpellier panel report of this year, 2024, highlights some of the policy and institutional innovations that can be implemented, as well as programmatic interventions towards advancing Africa's processing sector. And so here we're looking at, for example, food processing itself and also bio-based industries, where we have production manufacturing of products from bio-based sources, such as bio-waste, organic residues, also waste from industrial processing and also primary production. So here, for example, if you process cassava, you don't throw away what you would consider as waste, but there are other things that you can process from there. So we can have nutritious products which can enhance the nutritional status of Africa's citizens, and also renewable energy which can boost the manufacturing sector due to the increased access of energy, and also biofertilizers to enhance sorry, I hadn't shown that. Yeah, to enhance agriculture production. So aspiration 1 also shows that it promotes biodiversity conservation, which is part of bioeconomy development, and therefore leading to climate resilient economies. So this goes without saying that there is need to increase young people's access to quality education and skills. This is through technical and vocational training in critical fields, that is science, technology, and innovation, for them to fully embrace these opportunities. And we can see it's also part of achieving aspiration 6, where we have empowering of young people. So when we empower young people through this, we're able to increase and also support the establishment of youth-owned enterprises. Also, we see that in aspiration 7, where we have Africa takes full responsibility for financing her development. So here it's important to recognize which interventions need to be implemented and therefore increase economic growth so that they can be prioritized in national budgets, and also coming up with innovative ways of financing them. And lastly, I would like to also highlight a report by the Malabo Montpellier panel, which was looking at policy innovations and opportunities to advance Africa's food processing sector. So there are some recommendations that are derived from this report. Some of these are written here, and as other panelists have been mentioning, there is need to strengthen emphasis on investing on research and innovation in bio-based technologies, use of biomass, especially in strategic sectors like energy, capacity building, this is very critical, and knowledge sharing, as well as access to finance for bioeconomy projects. And as mentioned also earlier, there is need for cross-sectoral partnerships and collaboration. As we all know, bioeconomy involves all sectors. So as strategies are being implemented or developed, it's important that all sectors are represented in these discussions. Someone earlier mentioned we don't have Ministry of Finance here, for example. So it's important that we also include young people in these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aisha. If I can indulge our session chair for just 2 minutes, I have a question for the panelists. And essentially, we've heard a bit about using the scientific evidence base, and we've heard about the economics, but how can we also harness knowledge from local and indigenous communities to have a broad constituency for advancing the bioeconomy? Would anyone like to comment on that? Who would like to go first? Monica.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, this is a very important question, and it's a topic that we should be thinking and including in our bioeconomy strategies in the region and in each country. I think it's very important to document this traditional knowledge, to highlight this knowledge and the importance, for example, to address other rationalities and other types of production systems and livelihoods. Because if we do not document and systematize this knowledge, it doesn't count. So it's easy to ignore it. So it is important to have a knowledge dialogue. This is a concept that in the region and in Colombia, it is been positioning a dialogue of knowledge, of different knowledge. And I can highlight an example. Yesterday or today, we have a workshop related to biochar, right? Biochar is one of the land-based mitigation technologies, mitigation for climate change, that is being implementing. It is successfully known as it is a very important way to capture CO2. And this technology has its origins in the Amazon region, implemented by indigenous people. So this is an example of how this traditional knowledge can be a source of valuable new technologies to address these problems related to biodiversity loss and climate change adaptation and mitigation. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. From East African perspective, Fortunate, do you have some thoughts on this?
Thank you, Francis. Currently, what we are doing on indigenous knowledge is we are inventorizing the indigenous knowledge in ESC. We want to know what indigenous knowledge practices are there in the ESC and create a database. And with that, we have also developed a ESC regional indigenous knowledge strategy, which will guide on that practice. With the indigenous knowledge, as you are aware, in East Africa, it is quite enormous, and but it has not been documented at all. Some of the indigenous knowledge has not been documented. So we want to inventorize it and put it out there for people to use, but also not forgetting the intellectual property for the indigenous knowledge. It's very important that we need to protect the indigenous knowledge for specific individuals who have been using it for a very long time. Thank you.
Thanks, Fortunate. And from perspective in Thailand and Southeast Asia, Warrington?
I think we have to create trust between using technology, knowledge, and also even with the indigenous knowledge together, and bring those together and create the common knowledge or technology that can be adapted locally. So especially in bioeconomy here in the region, we have biodiversity. Those are the national or regional treasure. So we have to what we thought that we have to think about the utilization of our biodiversity as well. And like Dr. Lily has been mentioned yesterday, that also we have to concern about the benefit sharing with the people, and each country have different specific requirements.
Yeah, thanks, particularly in regard to the specifications of CBD on this. Yeah, and Aisha, some comments from African Union perspective?
Not from African Union per se, but I would like to say that there is need to create platforms for knowledge sharing, and this is involving all stakeholders. So we have the scientists, indigenous communities, policymakers, generally to have an inclusive discussion. So this would maybe involve creating workshops, community-based workshops where we have all the stakeholders engaging, and also digital platforms. And I'm also thinking that it's also important from these dialogues, we can build trust between the stakeholders for them to openly share knowledge and exchange, so that community-based innovations can be derived from these discussions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We've had an interesting tour around the Global South, and thank you very much to the panelists. I have more questions, but I don't want to test the patience of our session chairs any longer. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are standing between you and your coffee break, so I'm going to ask Lucia to give us a couple of concluding comments, and I will add mine, and then we will break. Thank you.
Well, yes, I have some thoughts about what we have been discussing today. Well, one thing I want to stress is that concept that Monica said about socio-ecological bioeconomy approach. Karina Pimenta, the Brazilian secretary, mentioned it also, and it has to be, I think it is something that has to be analyzed, studied, researched. Then the second issue I would like to mention is the importance of public policy. These policies have to be, for the bioeconomy, more sophisticated. No, and there's this necessity of capacity building that was mentioned today and yesterday also. This is very important. So the public policy has to be very sophisticated in the sense that it has to work on the biomass value chain and include not only bioproducts, which are very important, of course, but also at the same level, environment and social development in the territory. And there was also mentioned this public-private partnerships. I think that must be part of this sophisticated public policies. Without public-private partnerships, I think we cannot attain anything in bioeconomy. And concerning the startups, the bioeconomy-based startups, they are drivers of transformation, but as we have discussed yesterday and today, finance is not here. So private finance, venture capitals, angel capitals must be available, and also public finance. Brazil has a very interesting example of a development bank. and they finance strategic projects. I don't know in Africa if we have these development banks, but in Latin America, Brazil, it's a very good example. And then just finishing, I'd like to put a question, because I don't have the answer, about the creation of jobs that we have mentioned yesterday and today, the green job creation. And I really have doubts about what is the quality and the quantity of green jobs that bioeconomy can create. We have to continue studying. The economies that I know the most are those from the cone south of Latin America, the south of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, and Paraguay. Those are the economies that I know, and we have been researching with other colleagues from all those countries on the innovation in agriculture, and that includes also forests. And what we are seeing is that digitalization is substituting a lot of tasks, not jobs, but tasks, a lot of tasks, which is very good. There you can maybe attract young people to work in agriculture. But it's not evident that green jobs are going to be created in the sufficient quantity that our countries from the global south need. So this has to be really studied. We haven't enough research to know how many, and which is the quality, because it has to be decent work, no? So which is the quality and the quantity of green jobs created by the bioeconomy? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia. South Africa holds the presidency of the G20 next year, and we are forging ahead with the bioeconomy initiative. So you will hear lots more from our perspective during the course of next year. My then wrap-up comments for this wonderful morning session is bioeconomy is a vast, diverse, and complex enterprise, and there is no one pathway or roadmap, but the vision is essential. We need to guide the multiple stakeholders and efforts and enterprises in a complementary and value-adding way. And just to point to the International Advisory Committee on Global Bioeconomy communique, there is one document that is providing a clear vision of what the IACGB sees for the bioeconomy future. The second point to note is the bioeconomy does bring about a paradigm change. We need to talk, communicate, influence, and change the thinking from a fossil-based economy to a bio-based one. So it's a paradigm shift. We are in the process, and we need to influence and change people's thinking so that we are all starting to move towards this new way. Essential for this paradigm, though, is to address the challenges for global development from the last paradigm. And our AU colleague has highlighted that quite well. Equity on a global level is one such challenge. I want to thank all the speakers and the panelists for their very useful and insightful discussions, and apologize that we've run a little bit late, and welcome you then to the coffee break. And if you can just share with me a round of applause for our morning panelists. Thank you very much.